Once, Julius, Caesar, and Pompey Magnus stood on the same side of history. They were not just allies. They were symbols. Pompey had glory, victories, wealth, prestige. Caesar had ambition, sharp, restless, unstoppable. Together, they ruled Rome from the shadows. The Republic called it balance. History would call it temporary. Their alliance was never born of affection. It was born of necessity. Caesar needed Pompey's military reputation. Pompey needed Caesar's political genius. They sealed it with power and marriage. Julia, Caesar's daughter, became the bridge between them. For a time, it worked. Rome breathed. Julia died young, and with her death, something invisible snapped. Pompey drifted toward the Senate. Caesar drifted toward destiny. The Republic did not push them apart. It let them fall. As Caesar conquered Gaul, Pompey stayed behind. He became Rome's shield. The Senate fed his fear carefully. They whispered, Caesar wants a crown. Caesar wants revenge. Caesar wants Rome itself. Pompey listened. Because fear sounds like reason when power is at stake. When the Senate ordered Caesar to disband his army, Pompey did not object. When they named Pompey protector of the Republic, he accepted. And just like that, two men who once ruled together became enemies without speaking a word. Civil war is Rome's greatest shame. Roman against Roman, brother against brother. Pompey had numbers. Caesar had loyalty. The war moved fast. Too fast for mercy. The defeat was not final, but it was decisive. Pompey fled Italy, not because he was weak, but because he hesitated. And hesitation is fatal in war. Pompey ran east, away from Rome, away from the Senate, away from Rome, away from the thought he was saving. Every city he passed reminded him of what he had lost. Glory fades faster than blood dries. Pompey made one last calculation. Egypt owed him favors. He had restored their king once. They would shelter him now. It made sense. That was the tragedy. Egypt was not ruled by loyalty. It was ruled by survival. A young king, ambitious advisors, a country balancing between giants. When they heard Pompey was coming, they did not see a friend. They saw a problem. Egypt was ruled by a boy, Ptolemy XT, young, insecure, surrounded by advisors who spoke in his name and thought in their own interests. The throne was unstable. The people restless. Rome watching. Every decision Egypt made was about survival, and Pompey's arrival threatened everything. Pompey's envoys arrived first. They spoke of friendship, of old debts, of gratitude owed. The Egyptian council listened politely, then dismissed them. Because friendship meant nothing compared to one question: who will win the Roman civil war? News from the west was clear. Caesar was advancing. Pompey was retreating. Egypt understood power instinctively. Sheltering Pompey meant angering Caesar. Rejecting Pompey meant killing a legend. Neither option was safe, so they searched for a third. It came from Pothinus, the king's chief advisor. Cold, practical, merciless. If Pompey was dead, there would be no decision left to make. Egypt would appear loyal to the victor. The boy king hesitated, then nodded. History is often decided by cowards seeking safety. Pompey's ship reached Egypt at dawn. He stood on deck. Older now, thinner, stripped of command. Behind him was failure. Ahead of him, hope. Or so he believed. A small boat approached, sent by the Egyptian court. They invited him ashore. Pompey hesitated. His wife sensed danger. But where else could he go? Pompey stepped into the small boat. No legions, no banners, no authority. Just a man who once ruled Rome. As they rowed, the silence grew heavy. The soldiers avoided his eyes. That was when Pompey knew. There was no grand moment, no speech, no warning. One of the escorts stepped behind Pompey and drove a blade into his back. Pompey fell forward into the boat. The sea swallowed his blood. The man who defeated pirates, kings, and rebellions died without a battlefield. They did not bury him. They beheaded him. Because a corpse is meaningless, a head is currency. Pompey's body was left on the shore, burned by a loyal servant in secret. His name ended there. The Egyptians wrapped Pompey's head carefully. They rehearsed their explanation. They would present it as loyalty, as service. As proof they had chosen the right side, they waited for Caesar. Caesar landed in Egypt shortly after, victorious, unchallenged, unaware. The war was nearly over. only its consequences remained. Caesar entered Alexandria as a victor. No resistance, no challenge, only ceremony. Egypt bowed quickly to winners. The young king's advisors approached with rehearsed confidence. Their smiles were careful, their words precise. They brought a gift, proof of loyalty. A small chest was placed before Caesar. It was sealed, wrapped, treated with reverence. The advisors spoke proudly. Pompey Magnus was dead, they said. Egypt had removed Caesar's enemy. There would be no more war. They expected gratitude. They did not understand the man standing before them. Caesar opened the box. Inside lay Pompey's head. The room went silent. No cheers, no satisfaction, no relief, only shock. This was not victory. This was something far worse. Caesar stared at the face before him. This was not just an enemy. This was a former ally. A man who once ruled Rome beside him. A man married to his daughter. They had shared power, shared ambition, shared responsibility for Rome's fate. And now, Pompey had been reduced to a message. Caesar did not shout. That terrified the Egyptians more than rage ever could. He wept. Not loudly, not dramatically. Tears fell in silence. This was not weakness. It was recognition. Caesar understood something in that moment. This was a world his power had created. A world where loyalty was measured in corpses, where fear dictated morality, where old bonds meant nothing. Pompey had not lost to Caesar. He had lost to politics. Caesar turned to the advisors. He thanked them, then ordered their arrest. Within days, those responsible for Pompey's death were executed, not out of revenge, but to send a message. Rome would decide Rome's fate. Pompey's death ended more than a rivalry. It ended balance. There was no longer anyone who could stand against Caesar. No equal. No counterweight. No illusion of shared power. The wit, its soul, had left the body. That night, Caesar stood alone. Victorious. Unchallenged. Haunted. The man who once checked his ambition was gone. And now, every decision belonged to him. Absolute power had arrived quietly. Caesar did not celebrate. He ordered Pompey's remains honored. He ensured his enemy received dignity in death. Because Caesar understood something the world around him, that not power without restraint destroys everything, including the one who holds it. Egypt watched carefully. Rome watched nervously. Caesar moved forward, but the price had been paid. And history would demand more. Pompey Magnus, Rome's greatest general, was gone, not defeated in battle, not honored in death, but betrayed. And as Caesar turned away from the box, one truth settled over the room like a curse. This is what happens when friendship meets power. Pompey's head was gone, the box removed, the room cleared, the advisors executed, yet the silence remained. Caesar did not speak for a long time. Victory should have felt complete. Instead, it felt hollow, because Pompey had not fallen as an enemy. He had been erased like an inconvenience. For years, Rome had balanced itself on two men, Caesar and Pompey. Ambition restrained ambition. Power checked power. Now, one side was empty. And balance does not survive emptiness. Caesar understood this immediately. There was no longer anyone to blame, no rival to oppose him, no shield between him and absolute responsibility unless his last defense. Alexandria was tense. The executions sent shockwaves through the court. The boy king Ptolemy realized too late what he had done. Pompey's death was meant to protect Egypt. Instead, it placed Egypt directly under Caesar's gaze. And Caesar was not a man who tolerated chaos without purpose. Caesar summoned the Egyptian court. No threats, no accusations, just questions, calm questions. Why was Pompey killed? Who ordered it? Who benefited? The answers contradicted each other. Fear makes liars careless. Caesar listened patiently. He already knew the truth. Pompey's murder sent a signal far beyond Egypt. Kings listened. Senators trembled. Former allies reconsidered. If Pompey could be betrayed and butchered, no one was safe. Caesar made sure the world understood one thing clearly. He would not reward treachery, even when it benefited him. Pompey's body had been burned quietly on the shore. A loyal former soldier, poor, unnamed, forgotten, had gathered driftwood and gave his commander the only honor left to him. When Caesar learned this, he ordered the man found, not punished, rewarded. Because loyalty still mattered, even in a world rotting from betrayal. That night, Caesar dreamed of Rome, of earlier days, of laughter shared with Pompey, of plans made over wine and ambition. They were never meant to kill each other. Rome had done that. The Republic consumed its own guardians. Pompey's death was a mirror. Caesar saw not just a fallen rival, but his own future. Because Rome does not forgive men who become too powerful. It waits, then strikes, and Caesar knew it. While Caesar watched from the margins, Cleopatra, exiled, young, intelligent. She understood something Pompey never did. Survival is not about past favors. It is about reading power correctly. And Caesar was power incarnate. The civil war of Rome had spilled into Egypt, sibling against sibling, court against throne, loyalty against fear. Caesar had not planned to stay, but now he could not leave. Egypt was unstable, and instability invites rebellion. He remained in Alexandria, not as a conqueror, as an arbiter. That decision would change history, because Egypt was not just a province. It was grain, power, and Cleopatra was watching carefully. Back in Rome, news arrived slowly. Pompey was dead. There would be no return, no rally, no counterattack. The Senate understood what that meant. Caesar was alone at the top, and Rome has always feared one-man rule. Caesar had won, but the victory demanded payment. He could no longer pretend to serve the Republic. The Republic now served him. Every order came from his name. Every decision ended at his approval. Power had concentrated, and history never allows that to last peacefully. Pompey's death was not just tragedy, it was transformation. Caesar crossed a line without stepping forward. From now on, every act would be judged differently, not as a general, not as a politician, but as a ruler. Cleopatra was 21 years old, exiled, hunted, brilliant. She had lost her throne to her younger brother, Ptolemy XE, not through strength, but through manipulation. His advisors ruled Egypt in his name. Cleopatra understood something dangerous. Egypt did not need a king. It needed survival, and survival required Caesar. Cleopatra did not arrive openly. She did not announce herself. Instead, she chose theater. Wrapped inside a carpet, she was carried into Caesar's quarters under cover of night, not as a queen, but as a risk. The carpet unfurled. Cleopatra rose calm, poised, unafraid. She did not kneel. She did not beg. She spoke as an equal, and that surprised Caesar more than any army ever had. Cleopatra did not speak of love. She spoke of Egypt, of grain shipments, of wealth, of loyalty. She spoke Caesar's language. Strategy. Caesar listened. And, for the first time since Pompey's death, something inside him shifted. This was not seduction. Not yet. This was recognition. Cleopatra understood power without fearing it. Caesar underestimating it. They saw reflections of themselves in each other. And that was dangerous. News spread quickly. Cleopatra was back. The court panicked. Ptolemy's advisors demanded Caesar choose a side. Caesar refused. He chose balance. That enraged everyone. Alexandria exploded into chaos. Riots, fires, street fighting. Caesar found himself trapped in a foreign city with limited troops. The conqueror was now surrounded. Pompey's ghost seemed to laugh. Egyptian forces surrounded the palace. Supplies dwindled. Ships burned in the harbor. Caesar fought not as a conqueror, but as a survivor. Once again, just like with the pirates, Caesar remained calm, even under siege, even as flames lit the night sky. Because panic destroys faster than enemies, his soldiers watched, and their loyalty deepened. Cleopatra saw something rare, a man who did not rule through fear, but through certainty. Caesar did not demand loyalty. He earned it. This was no longer Rome's war. It was Caesar's. Every decision cut deeper. Every loss felt heavier. Power had consequences, and they were collecting interest. Parts of Alexandria burned. History was lost. Knowledge destroyed. The cost of ambition became visible. Caesar ordered restraint, but war does not listen. Reinforcements arrived. Caesar broke the siege. Ptolemy XE fled and drowned while escaping. Egypt's war ended not with peace, but with exhaustion. Cleopatra was crowned not by Egypt alone, but by Rome's approval. And she ruled beside her younger brother as tradition demanded, but everyone knew where power truly lay. With Caesar, history would argue whether Caesar loved Cleopatra, but this much is clear: they needed each other. Power recognizes power. Rome watched nervously. Caesar was no longer just a general. He was shaping kingdoms, and Rome fears kings. Even in victory, Pompey lingered. His death had not ended resistance. It had inspired fear, and fear breeds plots. Caesar looked at Cleopatra, at Egypt, at his future. The higher he climbed, the harder the fall would be. As Caesar prepared to leave Egypt, a message arrived from Rome. Not praise, concern, whispers of dictatorship, whispers of betrayal. The Senate was watching, and not in admiration. Caesar prepared to leave Egypt. Victory was complete. Victory was secured. The civil war was finished. And yet, the unease followed him like a shadow. Power had followed him too far from Rome. Back in Rome, senators gathered in silence. They spoke softly now. Caesar had defeated Pompey. He had decided Egypt's throne. He commanded legions loyal to him alone. This was no longer a general serving the Republic. This was something else, something Rome had sworn never to allow again: a king in everything but name. Dictator. They avoided the word, but it hovered over every conversation. Rome remembered its past. It remembered Tarquin. It remembered tyranny. It remembered blood, and Caesar was becoming unavoidable. Caesar was not blind. He had survived too long to misunderstand fear. Every honor felt heavier. Every victory felt sharper. Pompey had once balanced him. Now, every fear Rome had pointed in one direction, at him. Pompey had trusted the Republic, trusted titles, trusted tradition, trusted allies, and he had died alone on a foreign shore. Caesar learned from that mistake. He would never again rely on gratitude, only control. Caesar did not announce change. He absorbed it. His voice grew calmer, his orders more final, his patience shorter. He no longer asked Rome for permission. He informed it. As Caesar prepared to sail for Rome, crowds gathered, not cheering, watching. The world had changed. Everyone could feel it. The war was over, but peace had not arrived. Cleopatra spoke to him privately. Rome, she said, would never forgive him. They forgive failure. They forgive weakness. They never forgive supremacy. Caesar listened. He always listened. Cleopatra would rule Egypt. Caesar would rule Rome. Their paths would diverge. Because love does not protect rulers. Power only respects itself. As the ships departed Alexandria, Caesar stood at the rail. Egypt faded into the horizon. Pompey's ghost faded with it. But the consequences followed. Pompey's fall was not the end of the Republic. It was the proof that it could not survive its own champions. Rome created men too powerful to obey it, then punished them for existing. Caesar had no rivals left, no equals, no shields. Only expectations kill faster than swords. As Rome awaited his return, one truth settled over the empire: Caesar had crossed every line necessary to win. Now he would cross every line necessary to rule. Pompey was dead. The civil war was over. Caesar stood unmatched, and Rome began to plan. Because when power becomes inevitable, conspiracy becomes tradition.